Start, bro.
Good morning, everyone. So, the subject is operating system, and the topic is virtual machine demonstration and comparative evaluation of operating system and flavors. The team members are Chinmay DA, Chandana N, Pooja R, and me, Prerna N Bati. So, the contents are introduction, objectives, experimental setup and implementation steps, performance and processor, observation, comparative evaluation, conclusion, and references. So I'm going to explain about introduction. Virtualization is a technology that allows a single physical computer to run multiple operating systems simultaneously. In this experiment, we use a virtualization tool to install Windows 10 as a virtual operating system inside the Windows 11 host machine. The virtualization is described as a technology that allows a single physical computer to run multiple operating systems simultaneously. For this specific experiment, the team is using a virtualization tool like VirtualBox to install and run Windows 10 as a virtualized operating system inside a main computer running Windows 11. That is, we are using special software to create a computer within a computer to run a different operating system. Next slide. Objectives. Objectives to understand virtualization concept, to learn how to set up a virtual machine, to observe resource sharing of CPU and memory and storage between hosts and guests. Um, the objective outline the key learning goals and purpose of performing this experiment. To understand virtualization concepts, the basic primary goal is to grasp the theoretical basis of how virtualization works and to learn how to set up a virtual machine. This is the practical skill goal learning, the step by step process of creating and configuring a virtual computer environment and to observe resource sharing of CPU, memory, and storage between host and guest OS. This is the analytical goal, observing and studying how the main computer manages and divides its hardware resources like processing power, RAM, and disk space with a virtual computer. Next, experimental setup will be explained by Chinmay DA.
OS Windows 11. Windows 11 comparatively Windows 10. Windows 10 comparatively Windows 11 is faster because Windows 11 is the updated version of Windows 10. In different Windows 10 is only fast slower and RAM is smaller capacity. Windows 11 RAM is access memory is fast and comparatively very large. Virtualization tools. Virtualization tool, it means we can access another OS to the OS. We can use the tool with OS. Windows 10 ISO 4. Windows 11 and the computer OS. We can add the another OS Windows 10 is that Windows 10 is the guest OS because Windows 11 OS is the on the laptop. We can add the another OS Windows 10 processor. It will AMD 64-bit processor. It means continuously process the work to another process is called processor. We can continually work to another CPU is processor. RAM, it means random access memory. It data will access the box. We can install the virtual box on that Windows 10. Windows 11 is the update version to the Windows 10. In Windows 11, memory, CPU, another data will very fast. Created a new virtual machine for Windows 10. It means Windows 10 is the one OS. We can create another OS, Windows 11. We can use virtual machine to add the Windows 10. Allocated 4 GB RAM and 40 GB virtual ODX. It means we can allocate the data from 4 GB RAM, 4 GB random access memory. Data will store and access the data and store in memory in the 4 GB to 40 GB is that virtual ODX in the Windows 10. Attached the Windows 10 iOS file to the virtual machine. It means Windows 11 is the OS. We can attach the another OS Windows 10 is in the form of virtual machine. Started the virtual machine and performed Windows 10 initialization. In virtual machine, start the perform Windows 10 initialization in the form virtual machine. We can add one OS. Installing completed and Windows 10 ran inside Windows. Installation is completed and Windows in the Windows 11 we can use virtualization machine or virtual box. We can use virtual box. We can another OS Windows 10 will be inside the another one OS Windows 10 is completely run. Next part will continued by Pooja.
Performance and processor. Windows 10 system Intel Core i5-7200U. Performance tab CPU Intel Core i5-7200U at 2.50 GHz. Usage fluctuating, currently at 11%. Processes 114 threads, 4576 handles 202014. Observation: this older dual core processor struggles under Defender's load, which may cause lag during multitasking. Next slide. Windows 11 system Intel Core i5 1135G7. CPU usage cycle again anti-malware service executable is using 37.5% CPU and 162.5 162.3 MB memory, showing similar behavior on a newer system. Performance tab CPU Intel Core i5 1135G7 at 1.84 GHz, usage currently at 14%, processors 208 threads, 3263 handles 99142. Observation: despite having 4 cores and 8 threads, Defender still impacts performance through the system, handles it better due to newer architecture. Next slide. Observation: Windows 10 run inside Windows 11 using a virtual machine. This means Windows 10 was operated as a guest OS inside a virtual machine hosted by Windows 11. And next point is our system shared RAM, CPU and storage with the guest OS. This means that the Windows 11 host allocated portions of memory, processor, cores, and disk space to the virtual machine. Both host and guest use the same physical hardware divided by configuration. Next will be performance depended on allocated resources. This means that more RAM, CPU core, and faster storage given to the virtual machine resulted in smoother Windows 10 performance. Next slide. Next will be system use. Increased while machine was running. The system were active at once. CPU, memory, and disk actively rose, impacting overall responsiveness. And next point will be virtual machine provided a safe and isolated environment. This means that the virtual machine sandbox kept Windows 10 changes separate from Windows 11. Crashes, malware, or test errors inside the virtual machine did not affect the OS system. Next slide. Comparative evolution. The comparative evolution was explained by Chandana N.
Here, I am presenting a comparative evaluation between a host operating system and a guest operating system running in a virtual machine. The first point is installation type. The host OS installed directly on the hardware. This means it runs as the main system on the computer. Guest OS installed inside a virtual machine, so it runs on top of the host OS using software the like VirtualBox or VMware. The second point, performance. The host OS, because it runs directly on the hardware, it performs faster and smoother. Next, the guest OS performance is slightly slower depending on how RAM, CPU, or disk space is allocated. Third point, resource usage. The host OS uses the full hardware resource of the system, all RAM, CPU, or storage. The guest OS uses only the resources allocated virtual machine, like a limited portion of RAM or CPU. So the fourth point is security. The host OS runs in normal environment, so any software installed affects the main system. So next, the guest OS runs in an isolated and safe test environment, making it ideal for testing new software without risking the main system. So the fifth point and last point, usage purpose. Host OS best for daily general use such as productivity, browsing, and normal work. The guest OS ideal for testing, learning, experimenting, especially when you don't want to affect the host system. So, to summarize this, the host OS is our main operating system with full hardware control and speed, while the guest OS offers a safe and flexible space for experiments and testing. So, the next slide. So, the conclusion to conclude, in this experiment, Windows 10 was run inside Windows 11 using a virtual machine. The host system, that is Windows 11, shared its RAM, CPU, and storage with guest operating system. The performance mainly depended on how many resources were allocated to the virtual machine when the VM was running. Overall system usage increased, which slightly affected the speed. However, the virtual machine provided a safe and isolated environment, making it ideal for testing and experimenting without affecting the host system. So the next slide. So the next slide are references. These are the references we took for this project. And next slide. Thank you all.